Welcome, everybody. Cannabis News with Joe Klare for June 21st, 2018. Welcome, everyone, no matter what platform you're listening on. Thank you. Check us out at marijuanatimes.org. This is all, of course, presented by the Marijuana Times. If you go to marijuanatimes.org and click the video banner, the video tab at the top, you'll find all the episodes of Cannabis News. You'll find us on Vimeo, of course, vimeo.com/Marijuana Times. Actually, you can also search the Marijuana Times on Apple Podcasts to get the audio-only version of the show today. Talking more about Canada, legalization up there, some updates on that. Plus, those marijuana tour buses that have become big in places like Colorado, especially specifically Denver. Apparently, there's a battle now over whether or not those are legal. We'll talk more about that. And also, many of you may have been following the story of this boy in the United Kingdom who uses cannabis oil to stop his 100 plus seizures a day, as many epileptic children do, of course, with their parents and doctors or whatever. Well, anyway, the woman went into Canada and got, a 6-month supply, and she came back, and the government took the supply of cannabis oil. This increased his seizures. He had to go to the hospital, and we'll tell you what's happened since then, the latest news on all of that. But first, of course, Cannabis News is brought to you by Natureside and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Nature-side.com. Side is spelled C-I-D-E. Grow safe and poison-free with Natureside. Be regulatory compliant in the state that you grow in. Don't use harmful chemicals to control pests. Use organic, all-natural pesticides like the ones at Natureside. Nature-side.com, a proud sponsor of Cannabis News. This first story by Julia Granowitz over at marijuanatimes.org. Of course, we told you yesterday about Canada's Senate taking the House version and getting it passed. So they reconciled or whatever. They got the two versions of the same. Passed both houses. Then it had to go to for what they call royal assent, which is apparently some guy like holds a big bong over it and anoints it or somehow. I don't know. I saw a still picture, so I don't think I really got the flavor of the whole royal assenting thing. But there was some speculation yesterday about the timetable for all of this. We have an update on that. Of course, Senate voted 52-29 to give final approval. This is a historic milestone for progressive policy in Canada. Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould tweeted. I gave that a French flavor because I'm assuming that's what it is. I'm reading it. I haven't heard it spoken. This legislation will help protect our youth from the risks of cannabis while keeping profits out of the hands of criminals and organized crime. Which, again, that's great, but that's not the reason for legalization. The reason, I say this a lot, and I'll keep saying it a lot. The reason for legalization is that the people who sell, grow, and buy cannabis and possess cannabis and use cannabis, they're not criminals because they're not infringing on the rights of anyone else. Will it be harder for kids to get? Yeah, I would assume. I mean, the drug dealers don't check ID. Another great cliche, but there's a reason for it. Drug dealers don't check ID. People who have licenses they want to keep and fines they don't want to pay, they're more likely to check ID. And keep the profits out of the hands of criminals and organized crime? Absolutely. It will also do that. Those are side effects. It's not the reason for legalization. Sales will be tightly regulated by the government, but individual provinces and territories have claimed that they need more time to properly prepare to implement the new law. Yesterday we were talking, I speculated because other people speculated, sometime in September for the official legalization date. Apparently the provinces and the territories told Trudeau that they need more time. So he's agreed to delay legalization, which is, you remember, July 1st used to be the target date. And then it kind of seemed like September-ish. Now the official date for marijuana to be officially legal, that's what I'm going for, to be officially legal in Canada, recreational marijuana will be October 17th, 2018. So you Canadians, our Canadian watchers and listeners, mark the date on your little calendar on your smartphone. If you still have a calendar on the wall, by all means, circle the day. But I'm guessing most of you don't. Most of you have your calendar on your phone or your tablet, but wherever. I don't care if you write it down. I don't care if you make little squares and draw your own calendar and then circle it. Just mark the date. That's what I'm getting at. I made it too complicated. I'm sorry. I'll do that sometimes. We heard from provinces who told us they need more time to transition to this new framework, so our government will continue to work in full partnership with them to ensure a smooth and orderly implementation of this new law across Canada Trudeau told reporters during the end of a session news conference. It's great for people in Canada, obviously. It's a big step up over legalization, or over prohibition, rather. But it's something that's need to be tweaked and improved quite a bit. I know one of the things that I'm worried about, I mean, as my capacity as the person who hosts this show and writes about this stuff and has written about it for 9 years, some of the provinces like Ontario are planning on government-run stores, just government-owned stores for selling. That's going to create problems, the same kind of problems you see at the VA in the United States, the DMV, the post office. Less competition, or in the case if you're running a government store, no competition, because you're not competing with the other government stores. You're all part of the same, big team. But in private, situations where there's competition, it increases quality, it increases innovation, it lowers prices, better customer service. All those things are less likely to happen in government-run stores. You're going to be more likely to have lower quality marijuana for, might be a good price, but everything else is going to lack. And then in 10 years, they're going to say, well, these prices are too low. We need to raise taxes to cover the shortfall. And, well, you get into a bit of a spiral where the government just keeps throwing money after a problem. But that having been said, I'm not going to be a negative Nancy, if I may borrow a phrase. I don't want to be all negative Nancy on you people. So we will say congratulations to Canada. As I said, it's a great, great step up over prohibition. But don't settle. Activists in Canada, do not settle. Now is the time to get to work immediately on improvements. People will say it's too soon. No, it's not. It's not. Trust me. Well, look, the government's going to take forever to do what they need to do. So get started now. Maybe in a couple of years, you'll be on the brink of getting less restrictions, things of that nature. Next story comes to us from Denver, Colorado. Tour buses. Denver says local cannabis bus tours are operating illegally. I know you're probably the same as me. You hear that, you're like, cannabis bus tour? That sounds great. Sign me up. Well, hold on. Hold your britches. Again, this week and last week, I think I've really been really full of just so many phrases. They're just pouring out of me. Some are good, some are bad. They're not all gold. The City of Denver's Department of Excise and Licenses said this week that marijuana tour buses are operating illegally despite the drug's legality in Colorado. Denver police issued citations to 31 people who were on 2 cannabis tour buses Friday afternoon, My 420 Tours and Colorado Cannabis Tours. The Denver Police Department also arrested one person under investigation for driving under the influence of drugs, i.e. cannabis. Representatives from both companies said they believed they were not operating unlawfully and plan to challenge the allegations. Apparently, they've been warned quite a few times to stop. They were not stopped, so they got pulled over and people got cited. There's limited availability for public consumption in Denver. That does not include publicly using marijuana on a tour bus. This is according to Eric Escudero, a spokesman for the Department of Excise and Licenses. We saw a business that was operating unlawfully. We talked with them. We even sent them letters. And apparently they did not heed those warnings. Danny Schaefer, the chief executive officer of My 420 Tours, he said, we tried our best to maintain a good rapport with the with the city of Denver and the city and Denver police. My perspective now is this seems to be intimidation. They're trying to intimidate businesses like ours to apply for designated consumption area licenses, even though it's in its infancy stages and actually being implemented. Now, apparently, on one state website, which is kind of like a answering forum for questions people have about retail marijuana use in the city of Denver, there's a section that addresses marijuana consumption in limousines. The question is, can I smoke marijuana in a limousine in Denver? The answer, whoever answers it on the state website, I have no idea, is illegal for drivers and front seat passengers to use marijuana in vehicles designated for private for-hire transportation in Denver. If the private for-hire transportation operator allows for it, marijuana may be consumed in the rear passenger area only. But the Department of Excise and Licenses tells this 9 News, 9news.com, where I'm getting the story from, that they do not consider the back of the buses to be a private area. Of course, the CEO of you see the bus there if you're watching the video. It's tinted windows. They say they have shades. There's one point of entry, which is obviously, doesn't open while they're driving, especially, and they're not going to let anybody in. It's an event you have to pay for to get into. And look, obviously, I'm biased. Like I said at the beginning, if, I hear Cannabis Bus tours, I'm like, what? Yeah. What? Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah. Where's the paper that I signed? Well, how much is it? How much is it? How long does it go? Where's it go? Give me all the deets, as the kids say. So obviously I'm biased when I'm looking at this, but I think, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, I think if you look at this objectively, it's hard to say that the back of a limousine is private, but the back of a big tour bus with the windows blacked out and shades drawn and one point of entry which is closed, I don't see how you can say that it's a public area. I mean, I would consider like if a restaurant, or say a dispensary rather, had an outdoor section, but it had a big, those big wooden fences you can't see through, but the top was open or whatever, and people were smoking in there, I would consider that a private event. And I'm sure if you tried to climb the fence and get in, the owner would tell you the same thing. This is a private event. It's not a public area. It's not the public library. You can't just walk in. Same thing with this bus. So I think if you look at it objectively, these are private areas. Whether or not a judge will see it that way or these differences will be worked out, that remains to be seen. But apparently there's a bit of at least a mini crackdown ongoing or being implemented in Denver when it comes to cannabis tour buses. So if you're on one of those tour buses, be prepared. You might get pulled over. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's a good possibility, at least now. This last story, out of the UK, I talked about it a little bit before. I gave you a brief rundown earlier. Cannabis oil row. A boy has epilepsy medication returned. It's not row, it's row. I just did that with the Rappaport. It's not row, it's row. Cannabis oil row. Boy has epilepsy medication returned. Basically, as I said, his mom did what any mother would do. Maybe she went above and beyond. She went to a totally different country to get this medication, a 6-month supply of medication for her son, brought it back. It was confiscated at Heathrow Airport. Billy Caldwell, who was 12 years old, received the oil after doctors made it clear it was a medical emergency. So he was given back his medical cannabis oil that was confiscated from his mother. But they had to have a doctor prove, however much you can prove that is a medical emergency, quote unquote. And then they decided, well, yeah, we'll give him the oil. Billy's mother, Charlotte Caldwell from County Tyrone, said they had, quote, achieved the impossible, but called for the oil to be freely available. Billy began using cannabis oil in 2016 to control his seizures. Cannabis oil, which contains a substance, THC, is illegal in the UK but available elsewhere. Billy's most recent supply, which she had tried to bring the mom, tried to bring it in from the UK from Canada, was confiscated at Heathrow Airport and was admitted. And Billy was admitted to the hospital before Mr. Javid said it would be returned. He's the one that said it was a medical emergency. He's the one obviously decided. Then it was a medical emergency. The oil arrived at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital, where Billy is being treated. On Saturday afternoon, it was administered under a special 20-day license and is not allowed to be taken home. And then the 20-day license, of course, has to be renewed as well. So they have to keep going through this. A spokeswoman for the Home Office said it was an exceptional license for a short-term emergency and that it would need to be reviewed. This is, again, I'm biased, obviously. I've never gotten on here and say this is fair and balanced news or any of that. I'm biased. This child should be able, if his mom and his doctor want him to have cannabis oil, they have cannabis oil. He's having over 100 seizures a day. That is zero quality of life. That's what that equals. Because you could think the time you're having 100 seizures, that's time you're not living life. And the time between seizures can't be a picnic. If you're having 100 a day, the time between has to be filled with anxiety and whatever the effects of the epilepsy and then the seizures are, plus the anxiety that another one's coming. I don't know. You can look his mother in the face and say, you know what? No. It helps him. It gives him better quality of life. No. It has THC in it. Whoa. It has THC in it. Therefore, it's illegal. Therefore, this kid has to have 100 seizures a day. I don't see how that works. Again, I'm biased. I don't have a problem being biased. I'm biased and I say that kids, if their parents and their doctors decide, especially if their doctors and their parents are in agreement that this kid should have cannabis oil. I mean, it's not like they're giving a fifth of Jack Daniels. The cannabis oil does have some research behind it. To say that he's not allowed and that he's better off in the hospital having 100 seizures a day, I don't see how you can make that case. I don't see what logical train of thought you can have that would make the case that he's better off in the hospital having seizures. And even if he gets his 20-day license, he keeps getting it, then what? He stays in the hospital the rest of his life so he can have his medicine? Other kids, they got to go through the same thing? They got to stay in the hospital? Are they just going to have hospitals full of kids getting cannabis oil because they're not allowed to have it at home? Have it administered at home, like where aspirin and stuff's administered? I don't know. And they go on to talk about how broken the system is in the UK, and it really is. That's not the first time this has happened. There's been tons of problems with kids and medical marijuana when it comes to the United Kingdom. Even problems that you don't see a lot of even in the United States, where there's still some pretty, messed up laws, and there's kids getting taken from their parents all the time. But maybe it's because it's the UK and it's a smaller country, and they're not as used to this. Maybe it makes the news more, but I don't know. I mean, for them just the government just to go to any length to keep this child from having THC, like he's some kind of big marijuana kingpin or something, like he's smuggling cannabis oil for later sale. I mean, it's nothing you think of can point to a conclusion that says he's better off in the hospital having 100 seizures a day. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but in this case, I don't think I am. I think I'm 100% right. And I think most of you watch this would agree with me. If you don't, again, that's what the comment section are for. Go ahead. Thanks to everybody who checks us out, watches the show, shares the show, all that stuff. Thank you to Natureside, nature-side.com. They're organic, all-natural pesticides. Check us out at marijuanatimes.org. Click that video tab. Also find us on Vimeo, vimeo.com/marijuanatimesx. All of our other social media is linked on marijuanatimes.org as well. Thanks everybody for checking us out today, and we'll see you next time on Cannabis News.